Hey, 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 welcome to the Cover One Fantasy Show. I am one of your three amigos, Greg Tompsett, joined by my partners in crime, Rich Haynes and Anthony Prohaska. Gentlemen, how are we doing?
What's up? What's up?
Stressed.
What's up?
I'm stressed. We're about to do a live draft. I'm in another one to test some things out and do some stuff. I feel like I'm hot. Did a film room episode earlier today for
busy
the
man.
Bills-Lions game. But I'm excited and ready to go. It's always fun to hang out with you two dudes and talk some fantasy and talk some football and talk about other things that get us off track that we forget has nothing to do with the episode that we're doing in hand. So it's all good stuff.
That seems to be pretty common. Rich, how was your day? How was your weekend? You had a big weekend.
I did. I'm now old and I turned 40 officially, but it was great. Last weekend, my wife surprised me with a little golf scramble, which was awesome. And Gregory, you were a part of that. And we got nice and toasted and then went to the bar afterwards. And then, Gregory, you partook in a little actual birthday round of golf with me this Friday. And, I'm kind of new to the sport. I started playing last year during the pandemic and had my best round ever with Greg on Friday, which was an 89.
Wow.
And I shot a 42 on the front, which was, for me, phenomenal. So it was quite the nice little birthday present from a golf standpoint.
Well done.
Yes, it was
Well
pretty
done.
great.
I didn't have a birthday, but in this, just to get a plug, I got the first pick in that slow draft. So I just got Christian McCaffrey for one of my Underdog leagues. So that's pretty cool. It's not as good as your weekend at all, Rich, but, shameless plug. So it is what it is.
Speaking of which, tonight our sponsor Underdog will be making their most prominent entrance into the show. We will be doing a live draft on air, and I think it's going to give us a chance to talk about some news and things that have been going on, guys that we've seen in the preseason so far, guys that we've seen that have maybe made an impression, injuries, playing time, different snap counts, who's getting reps with the starters, and we're going to talk about it as we go live on a draft. So without further ado, I am going to share our sponsor Underdog and their site. You can do it on their website. You can also do it on their app. I can't lie, I mostly do it on their app. But if you're going on, you can go in here to their lobby. You can go in and choose any of them there. I'm filtered down to NFL right now, and you can choose $3 drafts, $5, $10, $25, $50, and $100. Some crazy. Oh wow, I've never even seen the $500 ones before.
Yeah, I noticed that one earlier with the $5,400 prize.
Yeah, that one's new. So you can go in, have a good time. I actually love the $3 ones. I do a lot of these $12 slow ones. They're a really good gauge on just, it's an investment that people are making, so they're paying attention, they're going through and sticking with it the whole time. You don't have people drafting some weird player in the first round and then dropping out. But tonight, we have already joined one. We are about to fill. We've got 9 people in, so waiting for just 3 more people. That'll start here momentarily. And then once it goes, we will be jumping right in and doing the draft live with you guys. So as we kind of wait here, this is what the platform looks like when you go in, and it's pretty easy to use to be able to go in and filter by positions. We'll talk through that as we kind of get going during the draft. But as we wait for this to fill up here, why don't we kind of just go around and talk a little bit? Rich, you said you watched quite a few of the games here this weekend. What were some things that stuck out to you?
Yeah, no, I was kind of going back and forth on Twitter with our friends Adam Pfeiffer and Jarrett Bailey, and I was sat down. I was watching the Bears game. I thought Justin Fields performed very nicely. I actually thought Tua, from a Dolphins standpoint, other than the pick in the end zone, in the first quarter.
But that's a good. I think it's almost a good. Obviously taking off my Bills hat, I was happy to see the pick. It's good for him to learn that, because I think he's never going to have the best arm in the NFL. So learning when to push it in there and when not to is going to be a big part of his development. So I actually thought that got all the attention. The rest of his game was actually pretty good.
Yeah, he was putting the ball in some nice spots, and was moving around well in the pocket, I thought, kind of avoiding the rush. I remember him hitting Malcolm Brown, on a couple dump passes that ended up being nice. Mike Gesicki, I thought, had a really nice game, and we talked about him in the tight end episode. I am pick 1-1 again.
Greg
Underdog
Greg
draft
is pick 1-2.
And Anthony,
I'm top 5. I'm 5th.
You're 5th. Oh, and there's Anthony. All right.
Now, just to clarify for everyone, I guess even myself too, like, so best ball league for everyone. We have the roster breakout, which may be a little different than other sites or other apps. And then once teams are drafted and the season starts, well, I guess once the draft is finished, it is full scale regular waivers and player acquisition.
No, it is
Exactly.
full
Tell
draft
everyone.
only. Draft
Yes.
only.
Okay.
So it is again, it's still competitive. It's still prize money involved. It's still an element of that competition, but it is draft only. So you go in and that'll happen as it comes closer. These are season long ones. When you get into when the regular season comes, you're going to be able to do weekly ones where you can draft and play it like a true DFS style.
Greg, do you want me to take Christian
please.
McCaffrey, or do you want Dalvin Cook? What do you want? Do you want me to let CMC fall to you, buddy?
Collusion!
Or...
I'm gonna take the guy you don't pick. So
I mean, I can't not take CMC. We talked about CMC a ton during the running back episode, and even though I think this year he might not be as crazy of a number one overall running back, from a tier perspective compared to maybe Dalvin Cook or Derrick Henry, I say it's hard for me not to take him. So, Greg, I know you're up on the clock there. Pick two.
Yeah, and it is pretty obviously.
You got 7 seconds, buddy.
Dalvin, I'm going to take him here, but just going through, they're the only two that's automatic. I think you can really start to debate once you get past there if you like Henry or you like Kamara. I know you guys, or Rich, you're not as high on Zeke. I like him. I'm comfortable with him fifth. There's been some questions that have come up there now with Saquon. Is he going to be ready week one? Jonathan Taylor. So, Anthony, you're in that spot now. Derrick Henry went third. Who are you hoping makes it to you fifth here?
I think Kamara things are maybe murky this year with the Saints. I also somewhat subscribe to Rich's theory of when how many elite seasons guys have in a row, and combined with all the quarterback stuff. But he didn't. My heart is ripped out. I'm leaving the league.
I'm going to quit.
He's done. He's out.
I quit.
You got a quick clock, Anthony. Just so you know.
Yeah, I'm watching it. You know
seconds.
what? Honestly, this pains me because I hate Dallas. I think Ezekiel Elliott's going to have a nice season. Like the offense should be putting up numbers. They got no defense. I'm going with Ezekiel Elliott.
So, the one piece I was going to bring up there that you will see go pretty quickly here is Travis Kelce goes early in these drafts, and he is the Underdog format does have a tight end premium to it, so you're able to get some benefit from
What's
it.
What's the tight end premium? Full point?
Yes.
Yep.
Let me check.
No, not on these. It's just a half point.
It's just half point even.
No,
for...
but I mean pushing it to like a full PPR, then right?
No, maybe it is just. I think it stays. Rich is right. I think it stays. It's just a half point regardless of position. Okay. So it's going through and debating. I've seen Kelce go really early in some of these.
So it's just there is no premium.
Yeah, correct. Just half point.
But even still, we were talking about this during the tight end episode last week.
Wow.
Kelsey's going ADP like 1.7, 1.8, which is. Yeah. But
how do we feel about that?
His projected points, if you remember in our last week's episode as well, like he projects to be like the right on about the third or fourth best wide receiver. So it's not crazy. It's crazy, but it's not.
Well, I mean, he was leading the NFL in receiving yards until the last week, and honestly, if he had played the last week, it was up for debate. Were the Bills going to play starters against the Dolphins? Were the Chiefs going to play starters against the Chargers? And neither team needed to, but the Bills played the whole first half and put up some points. And Diggs ended up leading the NFL in catches and yards and everything there. And Travis Kelce was right there. And if he had played, was within like 60, 70 yards of doing it overall, like not just as a tight end. So if you're putting up the most yards, and it's really, do you think things are going to shift that much against their defense? Being fearful of Tyreek Hill, they give up so many of those 15-yard catches over and over again. It's. I don't think he's going to drop off a lot. Maybe he doesn't have 1,500 yards again, but he's still going to have a lot.
Oh, the running back run got intense there. Saquon, Eckler, Taylor, Gibson. I thought I was going to have a real shot at Gibson coming back down. I did not think he would go that early.
There's a lot of folks, that whatever you want to call it, that anchor running back strategy, or the, having that early running back and then hammering the other positions.
Wow.
there's a big drop off once you get past those first handful of backs.
Yeah, now Chubb went, Mixon went.
So yeah, talk us through. You got one more coming up on you. What are
Najee
you
Harris
hoping for?
just went. Well, everything I was hoping for, they're all gone. I'm genuinely not pleased. So I wanted to go running back. Excuse me. But now I'm sitting here, and the way the board is fallen, I mean, I don't know. I think Clyde Edwards-Helaire, compared to what receivers are there and available, I just see too much value in the receivers that are there right now.
Certainly
And
DK.
I'm going to go with DK.
Yeah.
Oh, why won't it let me click? Thank you. I also, fun fact, in our Dynasty
I was
League.
like, yeah, I was gonna say. Oh, man.
I was like, well, it won't let me click. In our Dynasty League that we're in together, I mean, I'm very happy with AJ Brown, but I wanted DK, but then Rich decided to be a jerk face and take him 2 picks before I went, which I applauded. Well done, Rich, but my heart was a little sad.
Well,
So
I appreciate it.
I've heard a couple things on just the new system in Seattle coming for, Shane Waldron coming from LA. Do we think they're going to run it the same way that they did? Is it going to benefit Lockett more than DK? I don't know how I feel.
I think it's interesting because I like Tyler Lockett's skill set, and we talked about him a couple episodes ago. And Rich, you did the really excellent breakdown of his total points for the season and how when you look at it as a total point, you're like, oh, he had a good year. But then if you look at it week by week, it's kind of like, meh. That offense is very interesting. I just think DK is too good to pass up. And, oh, wow, Waller and then Justin Jefferson. So now, Greg, you're sitting there on the clock. What are your thoughts?
So I really like getting one of the top 3 tight ends, but I like Brown and Edwards-Helaire more.
You can't go Kittle over those. Any of the 4 that are ahead of him, I don't think.
I'm gonna go AJ Brown. I'm gonna go AJ Brown.
You guys like to let that go down. I get nervous for you. You're letting that clock get down there. I'm like, oh, geez.
So, Rich, talk us through your back-to-back.
I
can I guess
want
what you're
AJ Brown to go, to be honest. So
CeeDee Lamb.
Yeah, I literally do this in every draft where I'm sitting here at 1 and I take CeeDee Lamb, I take CMC, and I take CeeDee Lamb, and then I come back and I'm probably, I end up looking at J.K. Dobbins because I really like him in Baltimore right now. I actually had one draft where Justin Jefferson fell, and I had him and CeeDee Lamb, which was phenomenal. But
very nice.
I'm going to do something weird in this one just to be a little different. I'm actually going to take Kittle, which I don't have him in anything.
Okay.
I think that could be. I don't know. I like having the tight end position there a little bit, even though it's not a tight end premium. Kittle's obviously up there from a huge tier perspective. So I'm just going to differentiate it a little bit here compared to some of my other best ball drafts, and be very versatile now since I have. Obviously, CMC at running back, CeeDee Lamb, as long as Dak is okay, but his MRI came back clean, so he looks like he's going to be good to go. And Kittle, I can kind of do whatever I want now.
Greg, you got
when I have my next back.
I got it. And I was going to take whoever Rich sent back of those 3 players. The top 3 I would have had was CeeDee Lamb, George Kittle, and Edwards-Helaire. I was fine with Dobbins as well. So if Rich went there, if I wasn't ready for a tight end, I could have gone Dobbins in that group as well, but now feel pretty comfortable. I've got Dalvin Cook, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and having a good receiver. So you're now. Are you one of the backs?
Yeah, my heart was really torn. I'm a big Terry McLaurin guy, and I was gonna want to take Terry McLaurin there, but he just went 2 picks before. So now I'm looking at Allen Robinson, they're just the top guys on the ranking. Allen Robinson, J.K. Dobbins, Amari Cooper, DeAndre Swift. I really want to shore up that RB2, and now that some of the wide receivers I really covet are gone, I am going to go with J.K. Dobbins.
Yeah, I think it's a great pick.
Purely because I know Rich talked very highly of him.
And I don't like to talk about Ravens or Steelers, so I must actually...
That's why I'm surprised you even mentioned the thought of taking Dobbins. I was gonna be like, "Oh, Rich."
So it's the Ohio State thing. Maybe it's playing into that. I give him a pass.
So Anthony, you have Zeke, J.K. Dobbins, and D.K. Metcalf. Feel pretty balanced with that.
Well, Greg, why don't you click on the board icon? That's kind of a cool view.
A lot of receivers going now.
Oh, actually, if you do, Greg, you're not even in the draft. That's weird. Click go to draft at the bottom right in the green, Greg.
Now, what you want to do is exit the draft.
And then right above your dog, red dog thing, there's like a little, almost looks like a calendar.
There we go. Okay.
Yeah. So that
Fun.
this is
nice.
pretty
You
cool
can see
view.
it as a draft
Yeah.
board.
Yep.
Nice.
All right, now if we're saying here we're coming to the end of round 3.
Yep.
Based on how the board has fallen, you guys being at the end of round 4, having that big gap at the turnski, what are you guys hoping for? I guess, Greg, we'll start with you since you go first. What are you hoping for falls?
Yeah, Greg, let me know.
So obviously, starting with 2 running backs, I feel pretty good. I want to pound receiver for a while here. There's so many good guys in this stretch that I feel pretty good about. I don't mind this next tier of tight end. Like, you get, if you get an Andrews or a Hawkinson, but I'm not crazy about it. Obviously, in this spot, it does benefit you to pay attention to who they have. Obviously, I feel pretty comfortable. Rich isn't going to take a second tight end, so if I want to wait, I can wait for that coming back in the 5th. But I also don't love that middle stretch, so I'm probably looking at receivers here. I've had a couple drafts where I start with some fairly heavy running back if the right values fall, and then just only pick 4 or 5 for the whole draft. But I would assume that I'll probably go pretty receiver heavy in this stretch.
Fair. And who are you looking to?
So you're up next. Talk us through your next pick here. First quarterback off the board with Mahomes.
Patrick Mahomes. You know what I contemplated thinking QB, but that's too early for me. I'm going receiver here. I don't mind a lot of the guys in the tier. I'm not in love, but I really like DJ Moore. I've had him for several years. I think if he just gets a little more consistent QB play and gets some more targets thrown his way, he's really explosive. I like the offensive system he's in. I'm going with DJ Moore.
I like it. So now 2 more picks coming up to me. I like the Cincinnati guys. I like Ayuk. I like this stretch here. I'm not crazy about it. There's still some challenges with it. I don't love the next set of running backs here. Miles Sanders, Travis Etienne, Josh Jacobs. So this is always a tough stretch where I end up reaching for someone or going through. But the handful of the guys up here I like. I think I'd like if Brandon Ayuk made it. I like Thielen still. I like Deontay Johnson. So I don't love Maverick. He's the only Steeler that I actually like. I think he's going to get enough targets for it to matter. But they're some of the few that I like there. And I've been warming more to Travis Etienne as it's come along. All right, so he took Brandon or Jamar Chase. That makes it easy for me. I'll take Brandon Ayuk here, but I probably would have then been debating with Thielen or Johnson and pretty comfortable with either one. I don't think I would have gone Travis Etienne, but I like Brandon Ayuk. I like him and his potential upside in that offense, especially with what we saw for Trey Lance over the weekend.
Very fair.
Yeah,
Rich,
so
your turn.
Yeah. So obviously, like I said, we can go kind of anywhere here. If Mahomes would have fallen, I probably would have obviously taken Mahomes here at this point. He actually did in a couple of the other drafts I've done where I've been in this position. I like Thielen here. He's just a safe play, in my opinion, at wide receiver to kind of continue to build on what I got going on. So I'm going to grab Thielen here, pair him up with CeeDee Lamb at the wide receiver position. And then, looking at running back, I would like to get a running back here. Again, I agree with you. I don't love Miles Sanders. I'm not a big Etienne fan. Mike Davis. I like Javonte Williams, but I don't know. It's a little early for me here. Kareem Hunt is intriguing to me, but I'm going to probably go Josh Jacobs in Las Vegas. Not huge Josh Jacobs guy, to be honest, but considering what's left on the board, I want to fill out that second running back.
Are you not a Josh Jacobs guy because of him or because of the potential timeshare in the offense?
The offense, the timeshare, he doesn't catch the ball a ton, all of the above. I mean, he's kind of like could be a Derrick Henry type player, but he's not obviously that same skill set, and he doesn't get the ball as much as Derrick does in that offense. So, I actually owned him in a league last year, and he was a little bit, he was frustrating where, he could maybe get, 10 or 12 points here and there. So he's not going to hit home runs usually, but again, at the second running back position, I'm going to take him there. I love, I would have taken Johnson, who Greg just took.
That's fair. I'll say Greg gets his boy. He gets to come back and take one of the guys who he just considered several picks before.
And to be honest, I would have been right there with Jacobs. I think that he was the safest running back left from a touches standpoint, and it's not super exciting, but it's still pretty steady volume, and volume it really is.
All right, guys, I'm up, and I got a question. Am I crazy for thinking Josh Allen?
Not at all. I mean,
This is true. I usually
I
don't
think
go
that
quarterback
top tier.
before
If I
round
don't
6.
get so that it's Mahomes, Allen, Murray, Jackson, and for me Dak. If I don't get one of them, I wait forever. But if I can get one of them, I think they're a differentiator. I think that it really gives you a leg up. And I wouldn't do it early, but if you have 2 running backs and 2 receivers, I think it's okay.
And I did it. I traditionally
And I did it.
We're traditionally usually the earliest. I didn't realize I said it like that. Thank you. We've said it multiple times. Rich and I both, kind of subscribe a little to that philosophy of going heavy running back and wide receiver early, and then getting quarterback, some sort of QB strategy, middle-ish rounds like 7, 8, 9-ish, 10-ish, something like that. Usually I don't go earlier than round 6, but I saw the value here with Allen in the 5th round, and I like the 2 RBs and wide receivers I got, so I'm cool with it. And also, Josh Allen, Bills.
Ultimately, there's a couple shows that talk about this that I listen to that, fantasy football is still fun. Like, it's still about entertainment and having a good time. They were talking about if there's a guy that went to a college you went to, draft him. It's more fun. If there's a guy that you root for because he's from your hometown, draft him. That's fun. Like, it's okay.
This is a good example as well of, we talk about fantasy strategy and being adaptable. I almost was not going to take Allen because I was like, no, because my rule is like I don't go QB earlier than like round 6 or 7 or 8. And then I was like, yeah, but if the value's there, like to Rich's point there, if Mahomes would have fallen to him there, that value is really good right there. And then you pair him with Christian McCaffrey.
Right. Any situation I'd have, any team that I have the opportunity to pair CMC and Mahomes, in the 4th round, right? I'm obviously,
And see, that's exactly it. Like that value in staying flexible and fluid in your perspective and not staying married to like, nope, I told myself I'm doing 0 RB, or nope, I told myself I'm coming away with the top receiver in round 1. Like, you got to play the draft almost. Which we all know.
Well, and as it's coming back here, you start to get into a couple of those tiers. So for me, there's one more tier 1 quarterback. There's two more running backs I'm comfortable with. And then it just becomes, and honestly, if I don't get Hawkinson, I wait a while on tight end and be like, I'll figure it out later.
I'll tell you guys straight up what I am hoping for at this moment. I am either going to go with I'm either going to go with Mike Davis or Myles Gaskin.
Okay.
I just
maybe not Gaskin. It depends
I hope
on what
you take Myles
receivers
Gaskin because I think that's great for me and Greg.
Oh, I want Davis.
But because if you watch that game, Malcolm Brown. We're gonna have a sleeper episode maybe next week or the week after, maybe next week. I think that's probably a good time to do it. And Malcolm Brown for me is a guy like I'm targeting big time late. Same with Boston Scott and Philly. Like I love both of those guys late because I don't really love Miles Sanders and I definitely don't like Myles Gaskin. I think he did get dinged up.
Mike Davis went. Son of a bitch.
I'll take Myles Gaskin. Do it, Myles Gaskin.
His thighness is gone.
Tell me I suck and take him.
Ooh, I like Debo, Sermon, Edwards. No, I'm going to go with Debo Samuel.
Good, because I have Ayuk, and I like Debo, and I would have been really annoyed being like, oh, I don't want both Ayuk and Debo. That's weird.
I like what he offers in the – he gets some –
And now I want one rushes. Of these 2 people to take Gaskin, so that just takes another guy off the board.
That's fair. I like the opportunity that Debo – what's funny? Like, Ayuk and him are so, like, almost interchangeable, and they're so, like, fun to watch. That's also another reason I kind of took him. But I like the usage for Debo. He gets some running touches. They find creative ways to get him the ball.
There we go. Good job.
Oh, Person I don't know. I really didn't think anybody was going to take Mike Davis. Like, I really am shocked.
He's starting to go earlier and earlier.
People are starting to wake up a little.
It's making me sad.
Yeah, because every site is like...
I was getting him in like the 8th round, 9th round, and a couple of things, and it was fantastic. And now, but that's how it happens. Okay, so I'm up. That was fantastic because I actually like a lot of the receivers. I like all 5 of the next 5 receivers. So no matter what, I'm going to get 2 of them here because Rich can only steal 2 of them. So I'm going to take Cortland Sutton. I like him. I still like the upside there. I like Judy a lot as well, but I still like him quite a bit. But I like Tyler Boyd. I like Mike Williams. I like Antonio Brown. I like that whole stretch.
That's fair.
Yeah, actually, Sutton was going to be my pick, so screw you. So I'm, even though Trevor Lawrence, Mango Whiteclaw, even though Mango Whiteclaw didn't perform very well against the Browns this weekend, I don't know. I can't not like DJ Shark a little bit, so I'm going to go DJ Shark here and hope that he gets his shit together.
I like it.
Trevor gets his stuff together down there. He had a little bit of a rough game. Here, I like Tyler Boyd as well. Here, I like Devonta Smith, but Devonta's been dinged up a little bit. Burrow's been seeing some ghosts with the knee and Cincy, which concerns me slightly. But right here, I'm probably going to continue to bang that wide receiver position and grab Tyler Boyd to kind of get a nice foursome, in my opinion, between CeeDee Lamb, Thielen, Shark, and Boyd. But I really wanted Sutton because Drew Lock played very well.
Looked very nice.
Talking about guys over the weekend. Drew Lock looked really nice for Denver. Granted, week one. Granted, not going against top defense, all that kind of stuff. But Drew Lock looked very, very sharp for Denver in the week one of the preseason.
And I'm addicted to Mike Williams, so I'm just going to take him.
Is there a way on, is there a way on the app to pull up just my team?
Yes. So if you click on your icon, your box, it'll pop up your roster.
Like up at the got it. Thank you.
So let me see if I.
So Greg says on the screen right now. He can go. You just scroll down underneath your dog photo.
Oh, there we go. So we can see I now have 2 running backs and 5 receivers. So I've gone A.J. Brown, Brandon Ayuk, Deontay Johnson, Cortland Sutton, Mike Williams. As you're coming up here, we'll do yours next, Anthony.
Yeah.
So you have a quarterback with Josh Allen, but you also have Zeke and Dobbins, and then 3 receivers, DK, DJ Moore, Debo. What are you looking at now?
Oh, I'm looking at a wide receiver again, or potentially...
I think there's one starting running back left.
Who? I'm out of my queue.
I still like Damian Harris.
Yeah, but I don't.
You got to pick.
3,
oh, shit.
2, 1. Auto pick.
I took Dallas Goedert.
Okay.
I wanted an auto pick out of Anthony.
No, I was. The buttons, man. I'm fucking losing my
So, Rich, talk us through your roster so far here. I like it.
And one thing I want to point out before I do that is if you look at the top, for those of you that might be using the app or thinking about it, under each player, as the board's going, you can see their position breakdown. So 1 QB, 2 running back, 2 wide receivers. So what I like to do, especially when I have a turn pick, and Greg, obviously we've been just talking about what we're thinking of doing, but looking to see, okay, what is that person maybe going to take based on their roster? So right now, D for 87's up. He has no tight ends or quarterback. So if I was around his pick or picking, right before him, I would be looking, okay, he's got to take a quarterback at some point or a tight end. He's already got 3 running backs, 3 receivers. So that's just a cool thing that they do on the
either of these guys. Now, Deefer and Moon's looking at this Foosman here at the corner. He's only got 1 receiver, so you have to assume that was smart. Both of them took their top 2 receivers on the board, knowing it was very likely he was probably going to take 2 here because he only had 1 this far into the draft.
Right.
And 1 wide receiver this far in the draft is crazy pants.
Yeah, that's weird in a PPR. I mean, even though it's a half-point PPR, that's a little nuts. But, hey, who knows? Maybe it'll work out.
Hey.
So, yeah, my roster right now is McCaffrey and Josh Jacobs, CeeDee Lamb, Thielen, DJ Shark, Tyler Boyd, and George Kittle. So I love the fact that I have Kittle. Looking at, my ADP versus where I've actually picked people, which is always kind of interesting. And I'm pretty much, right on the head with everyone, which is kind of weird. I took Jacobs about 6 picks before his ADP, but, again, based on who was left, I felt like that was just kind of a solid plug-and-play guy at running back in a best ball league. DJ Shark I took a little early. I got Boyd a couple picks late, it looks like. So yeah, I'm pretty much right on the ADP, which is interesting.
So Anthony, with your squad right now, you are pretty well covered across the board. You have 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 3 receivers, and a tight end. You're coming up here in our next pick and a couple. There's still 5 to go before you. So do you have are you targeting a specific position, or is it still by the board? Because at some point here, all of us kind of do transition a little bit into more targeted positions versus purely the board. Which way are you leaning now?
I'm going to come away with, I'm looking at receiver and running back here and debating the options that are
and we'll do
available.
that. For anyone who's on there, you can't just touch the position groups and it'll filter it. So now, as Anthony said, he's looking just running back and receiver. So I filtered it the same way.
Yep, I'm literally looking at it. So I see the names like Landry and Curtis Samuel and Waddle, and I prefer to come away with a running back here. I just don't know if I love the options that are there.
which this menu that I'm showing right here, A.J. Dillon, James Robinson, Zach Moss, Melvin Gordon, James Conner, Tony Pollard, this is why you go running back early. This is why you need multiple running backs early on, because if you don't, it is a barren wasteland of lottery tickets.
5 seconds, Anthony. 5 seconds.
Jarvis Landry.
Hey. Rich's proclaimed wide receiver 1 in Cleveland.
I hate myself for it, but I mean, in a half PPR league, he's going to get receptions. I think he's a good receiver as well. I still wouldn't put him over Odell, but I think as the 4th receiver on my team, I'm very fine with that.
So with the setup and the structure we're going through here, this is a good, we'll see if DFS Dre here messes me up.
Auto pick?
Maybe.
Yeah. You will see this in Underdog, especially because it's best ball. As you get into these middle rounds, especially on the $5, you will start to see some auto picks happening, which can kind of throw you off. Usually not too many, but you might see somebody kind of fall asleep at the wheel a little bit.
Yeah. And the good play that we saw from this weekend has made me more excited. I've had a fair amount of Darnell Mooney, and I do think Allen Robinson's still easily the number 1, but I'm excited to have some Darnell Mooney if Justin Fields starts to take off.
He's got a fun name to say too, so that's always a big plus.
And I'll explain, my number 1 player on my board was actually tight end Tyler Higbee. I just didn't think Rich was going to take 2 tight ends.
No, not at this point. Although I do like a couple tight ends. This pick you may surprise you a little bit, but we'll throw it out there.
Matthew Stafford.
So I'll talk about that here in a second. I mean, it's a little ahead of his ADP, but again, I really wanted Justin Herbert to fall. He went a couple picks ahead of me. That was the guy I wanted, so that made me kind of not happy.
3 picks.
And looking at running back a little bit, I'm actually going to do something strange here. I'm going to take Kenyon Drake and pair him a little bit early with Josh Jacobs again in the best ball format. Though I don't hate that because one of them may do well, and it's almost like Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb, kind of a poor man's Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt.
Both can contribute. You get points no matter what, but if one goes down, you might have a stud.
Exactly. So I'm doing a little bit of a maybe an early handcuff, but not because I think both could be playable week to week. Just like if I took Chubb in a best ball, I would not shy away from Hunt. Honestly, it's just usually Hunt's going so high that doesn't make a lot of sense to even consider that.
I took Tyler Higbee again. What Rich was talking about at the turn, I knew he already had a tight end. I could wait. He was my number 1 target there, so I wanted to take a different player early on. And I like Higbee, and the same reason that Rich took Matt Stafford is that I think that offense is there. I think he's the number 3 option behind Bobby Woods and Cooper Kupp. And every week, the last 2 seasons, when Gerald Everett was gone, Tyler Higbee has looked fantastic, and now he has Matt Stafford. In this once you get later into this, after that top tier of tight ends, he's my favorite out of that group to go after. Who are you looking at?
I was pretty confident I could get this guy coming back. I'm going to take A.J. Dillon.
Nice.
I like the idea of all the guys that are really available. I was going to take them just so I don't make Rich anxious with the clock going down.
But no, I mean, Jamal Williams was a playable player last year, even when Aaron Jones was playing.
Correct. And if of all the guys that are available right now in this running back, almost wasteland at this point, I feel like just out of even if Aaron Jones stays healthy, I felt like A.J. Dillon has the best chance to get touches out of all these guys. Zach Moss, the Buffalo backfield is kind of muddled. They don't run it a ton anyway. Singletary looked really good. I refuse to put faith in James Conner. Melvin Gordon is technically RB1 from reports coming in Denver, but Javonte Williams looked pretty good over the week. And Gordon also has the potential suspension looming in addition to health concerns for him. So that really was kind of, the highest floor of everyone. Plus, again, if something, God forbid, happens to Aaron Jones, I think A.J. Dillon would be a quality person to step in there.
So, Rich, quick question in the chat from Christian. Feelings on Saquon Barkley. We've heard, I think, relatively encouraging health news, but still some question. They're obviously being fairly cautious. How were you feeling on Saquon Barkley?
Yeah, I'm just not. I mean, I've loved his talent coming out of college, obviously, but and I believe our friend Samantha really likes his quads. But I am not a big fan of Saquon this year, mainly just from a risk standpoint. Whether it's the Giants' offense, I'm not a big believer in Daniel Jones. I'm still not a big believer in their offensive line in general. I know they added some position, some players at the wide receiver position like Kenny Golladay. I'm just not a big fan. So for me, Saquon Barkley is somebody that if he falls me at the end of round one, I may consider taking him, but I'm just not going to be excited about it. So that's a guy where if he goes 5 or 6 or whatever, and I'm sitting 8 or 9, I get excited that I don't have to consider Saquon Barkley because I just feel, I don't know, by the middle of that season, he's going to be dinged up or something's going to be going wrong there, and I'm just going to have wasted my first round pick. Also, I've mentioned in the past, I liked having players in those first couple rounds on good teams that I think are going to be making playoff runs, and potentially not sitting their players down the stretch if they are a little dinged up because they're out of it. And I don't see the Giants being, in it this year. So for me, I'm not a huge Saquon fan.
No, and I think that's fair. There's still a line for me because running back is so, drops off so fast that the turn in the first round for me, if I get there and say all the top backs go, and then you're into Kelsey goes and Tyreek Hill goes and Devontae Adams goes and Stephon Diggs goes, a lot of times that's your first 11 picks. If you're there at 12 and you're asking, hey, would I rather take Joe Mixon or would I rather take Najee Harris or would I rather take DeAndre Hopkins? It starts to get to a point where I would take Saquon there. And for me, it's right there around the turn 12, 13, 14 range, where I think it's too much possibility that if he gets in there, it's still enough touches to make it worthwhile. Anthony, 2 more picks coming up here. Who are you targeting?
Mother fudge.
Did you want Logan Thomas?
No, I told myself I was either going to take Logan Thomas or I feel like last time I said it, I jinxed it, so I'm going to wait. I like the idea of Rich's handcuffing yourself type thing. So
whoa, this is a fantasy football show, Anthony. This is that's some kinky stuff.
I'm sorry, is this not that I'm in the wrong podcast? I gotta go.
It's a family show. Thank you.
All right. Okay, so it did work out. I was considering. I was either gonna go low. I was thinking Logan Thomas potentially, but I was really eyeing some other guys. Pittman's there, who I really like, but I'm gonna go with the Tony Pollard aspect. Again, another guy who might get a couple touches anyway, and God forbid if something happens to Zeke, I think Tony Pollard has found himself to be a very credible person. And again, it's the best ball aspect that is throwing that out there for me as well, too.
Yeah, I agree. And I do have Zeke in several leagues, and I am very comfortable reaching a little bit to make sure I get Tony Pollard.
Yeah, that's fair. I second that notion.
So I'm coming up here. I don't have a quarterback yet, so it's now in a range where I can't wait too much longer because I need to get multiple, and I also still want to keep an eye on, because I waited on tight end, I also want to kind of double dip and take another fairly quickly. So I do like Robert Tonyan as a guy, especially if I have someone like Higbee already. At quarterback, I like a fair amount of these guys. I want to come away with one of those top handful here: Burrow, Lawrence, Fields, and Ryan. And I like each of those. So I'm probably going to take one of each from that group. I'll start with Robert Tonyan. Let me check. I do start to check bye weeks a little bit here later on because you don't want to mess yourself up too much. So Higbee and Robert Tonyan, I feel like, is a cobbled together a pretty solid tight end. Rich, who are you doing at the turn?
Yeah, so similar fashion. I actually, looking at bye weeks too, and my wide receiver group is a little bit problematic right now. I'm going to have to look at that from a bye week standpoint. But I was looking at that from a tight end perspective here, even though I have Kittle. Again, I don't know, best ball. I feel it's tough to pass up Mike Gesicki right now. I really like what he did there in this week.
And they can still
and
contribute
even last year.
Yeah, flex as well.
And even last year, we talked about him again in the tight end episode. And one of the chat folks brought him up, and I was kind of like, I don't know about, I'm not really sure about Gesicki, but I don't know. I went back and looked at some things last year. I'm going to take another player here, a little ahead of his ADP, but as you mentioned, to have some fun in a best ball league. He has a different bye week than Matt Stafford, and since I have to wait so long, I'm pretty sure a couple quarterbacks for sure would have went. Burrow would go, Justin Fields would go, Matt Ryan would go. So then I'm getting, so for me, I really like Burrow until what we're hearing about training camp right now. He's a little bit, a little bit nervous with the knee. I don't like Mango White Claw. Justin Fields looks good, but I'm not sure. There you go. like that pick.
So, and I need to come back with more. I'm going to have to go 3 quarterbacks because I waited so long, and Fields being my first one. Sometimes I'll just go 2. Now needing to wait, I'm definitely going to need 3 of them, but I think I can cobble that together, and I saw enough excitement that I want to have a little piece of Justin Fields here.
I'm not sure if this comment was already put up there, but I mean, just because Anthony's handcuffing himself.
Whoops. Oh, Mega Outlier, what up? Well played.
Omega is a great interaction on Twitter and always a constant listener to the show. So,
good evening, damn it! I wanted Latavius Murray.
This is the most I've heard Anthony swear on one of the podcasts too. I love it. I love it when people get it's great.
Dang,
well, now you get into some of that range here where whether it's Murray, whether it's Pollard, Fournette, Gus Edwards, Jamal Williams, you get into a lot of kind of, for me, Alexander Madison coming up later on here. You get into some of that high upside handcuff where if the starter goes down, you're talking about a top back.
Yeah.
So, Anthony, how are you, trying to calm your nerves?
I think I'm going to go with another kind. I'm thinking of Gus Edwards.
I like Gus. Gus is, for me, is a poor man's Kareem Hunt, where I think he's playable even with Dobbins. Like he gets
Well, that's the thing. There's so many
10
running
to 12
touches.
carries, and he's gonna get like 6 or 8 touchdowns during the year the way that they use him. So now you might get boned, and you might have a week where it's 38 yards and no touchdown and no catches, but you are also going to have some 70-yard 1 touchdown weeks where he's behind Dobbins, but still gives you like 13 points. And then if Dobbins goes down, you're in great shape.
And the thought here too for me with it, again, handcuff option, but also in a best ball league, I don't know, maybe there's some week where for whatever reason Gus Edwards keeps getting the ball inside the 5 and he pulls out like 3 touchdowns. And you know what? Okay, maybe he's the guy who could have those LeGarrette Blount type weeks where it's like 7 carries for 3 touchdowns and like 17 yards. And you're like, dude, this guy was on my bench. Like, why? But I really wanted Latavius Murray because of handcuff value, but more of he's a viable option. He gets the ball in that offense, although I dislike the New Orleans backfield as a whole. If Taysom Hill is the quarterback there because of his vulture opportunity towards the goal line. But now coming back down the pike, I am either grabbing a tight end or a quarterback, depending on who is there. And I considered grabbing one there, but I just thought Gus was a good option.
And sometimes it's tough there because you find yourself in a position, you're fairly balanced here. 5 running backs, 4 receivers, 1 quarterback, 1 tight end. Rich again, 2, 3, 4, and 2. I like my team, but I've only got 2 running backs right now, so I'm going to have to start stacking those pretty quickly here, and just shooting for upside. I feel really comfortable with my top 2, and I love my receiving core, but 2 running backs is tough, so it's still something you have to pay attention to.
Who are your 2?
So I've got Dalvin Cook and Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
Oh, that's a good 2.
Yeah, so I feel good that it's going to be playable each week, and they're going to cover me for a long stretch. But it's still risk when you wait that long on the other pieces.
I'll go ahead and flesh some ideas out just because we're coming down to my pick. So quarterback, I don't know why I even bother thinking things in my brain. I saw that Matt Ryan was there, and I thought that was very interesting.
And then he just went.
Yep, and he just went. I also know that Ryan Fitzpatrick plays the Packers during Josh Allen's bye week, and I like that matchup for the Washington offense.
That's Anthony. Talk about that concept a little bit. Looking for players specifically during bye weeks, because I think that's something we haven't really talked about a ton on past episodes. So just jump into that strategy for a minute.
Yeah, when there's, I think that's something that gets lost for people. I can't count how many times I've had buddies be like, "Oh, well, I'm screwed for week 9 because like 5 of my starters are all on bye week, or I didn't have a quality replacement because the backup QB I picked has the same bye week as my starting QB." So sitting here, and I'm going to take Ryan Fitzpatrick, and then I'll keep talking through it. I don't want to take a loss or lose points in that week that one of my studs are out because I didn't plan accordingly. And as you start to get towards these depth rounds that we're in the draft now, I like to look forward to that a little bit just to see and start to plot things out to make sure I can maximize my opportunity come those bye weeks when my studs are out.
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense, and it's a great strategy to keep in the back pocket. Greg, on the clock.
So it's now getting to the point where I would have taken Fitzpatrick, obviously Ryan. I do like a couple of the guys here, and I can't wait too much longer. But I also need to make some investment, and I think there's some pieces you can go through. I'm not going to handcuff myself, although I could. I like Naheem Hines. I think there's a chance he's going to get enough catches that it's a nice fill-in week. It's an opportunity to be able to get, some of those receiving back touches just to have a flex play or a fill-in when you need it.
And that was going to be my pick. So now I'm not sure what to do. No, that was actually going to be my pick, though. I echo everything you just said. So I'm going to take a guy I already mentioned because at this point I don't care about ADP at all anymore. Malcolm Brown down a little bit further, but he got the start over Myles Gaskin, and I won't have a lot of faith in Gaskin. So I'm going to grab Brown there. And there's a couple another interesting running back for me right here. I'm going to go Philip Lindsay as well because I don't think David Johnson's actually going to be the guy in Houston. Philip Lindsay got the nod. A lot of people think right now David Johnson's third on the depth chart. Now I know week one, who knows, but I think I don't know. I don't know what's going to go on there. So I think that Philip Lindsay could have a chance to take some important carries down there in Houston.
This late, they've made enough of those investments in the Giants. We've talked about all of the other pieces there, and I do think Daniel Jones at least has a long enough leash that he's going to get. They don't have a backup. They don't have another option. They don't have another young guy. They're going to keep playing him. I don't know that it's going to be pretty, but I think I can get some points out of that, especially in a best ball league where I only need to have his good weeks fill in here and there. I like him more versus in a regular league where you might have to actually decide, do you want to start him? I like him more in that kind of format. Anthony, so now you went quarterback on the last one. Does that mean you're focusing tight end here?
I am focusing tight end. I do like several of the receivers that are there and one running back in particular, but with the lack of a waiver option to fill. So Dallas Goedert is one of the reasons I also like Dallas Goedert is his bye week isn't until week 14. Now that might hurt you a little bit towards the back end of the season if you're pushing for stuff. But also I like the idea of knowing like my tight end is kind of set for a while. God forbid, knock on wood, he goes down with an injury. But with this and not being able to do that, I'm looking at tight end here to fill that potential bye week spot. And somebody who I like, who I think could get some touchdowns and fill in. He looked good last year coming in for Jonnu Smith. I'm going to grab Anthony Ferguson.
I like it. And there really is still a pretty significant drop-off in targets in Tennessee after you get past A.J. Brown and Julio Jones. So I don't think it's crazy that Ferguson could be the third.
I think he honestly, I think he would be if he ended up somewhere in the 60 to 65 catch range. I could see that being decent. Also, I think he could, it's like a ceiling, and maybe he could look at like 8 touchdowns just because of how they run that offense towards the goal line and what he did last year. Tannehill likes them. They have a good rhythm. But yeah.
And I actually don't hate this when you talk about waiting. I want one of those top 3 tight ends. Otherwise, I don't mind waiting because I can talk myself into stories for Jared Cook with Justin Herbert. I actually don't hate Cole Kmet with Justin Fields. Blake Jarwin, playing in Dallas, I think he was a real hot target last year and then got hurt right off the bat. So
Zach Ertz is going to be traded to the Bills.
Clearly,
so we know that
any moment now. That deal's been done like 7 different times. So it's bound to happen now.
Speaking of like a deep sleeper, giving some Cleveland insight here. David Njoku is a guy that in a best ball league specifically, taking him late from a tight end standpoint, he's going to get 6 to 7 touchdowns this year. So in best ball, those weeks where he gets the 4 catches in the touchdown, he's going to most likely be in your lineup from that point perspective.
And you get him basically for free.
You get him for free. Nobody knows, and like everyone thinks Austin Hooper, but he's disappointed a little bit since he signed the contract in Cleveland. We also have Harrison Bryant, and we run a lot of 2 tight end sets anyways. So David Njoku is the pass catching threat there, and is definitely a red zone target and favorite of Baker. So Chief Slam, that's his little touchdown celebration. He will have 6 to 7 of those this year. So again, best ball late. Don't sleep on Mr. Njoku.
I'm taking Njoku when we come back down.
Go for it. I have Kittle and Gesicki, so I'm not looking at tight end currently.
What's fun? I like
probably good for a bit.
I'm here for all the positive things about David Njoku. I don't think I mentioned it on here, but I'm a Miami Hurricanes guy for college football, and I really liked him at Miami, and I thought he had a really fun skill set for the NFL, so I'm always rooting for him. So any positive things I hear from him coming out of Browns camp or from Browns fans and analysts like yourself, Rich, I am all there for, because I think he's got a really fun, really interesting skill set.
Yeah, he makes the tough catch and sometimes drops the easy one, so he can be a little bit frustrating. He actually just fired Drew Rosenhaus, which is interesting from an agent standpoint.
He did.
So,
I didn't know that. Wow.
yeah, so that's like big because he tried to get him. He tried to get traded out of Cleveland last year, and then they kind of said no. So he might actually be up for an extension now in Cleveland. A lot of people think that maybe Hooper is going to be in a tough situation, not this year, but next year from a contract standpoint when some of the guaranteed money isn't as big of a deal there. So it's just interesting. And he has kind of a rapport with Baker. So somebody, again, to keep your eye on late.
For sure.
So, Anthony, what are you feeling on now? You got 2 quarterbacks, 5 running backs, 2 tight ends, only 4 receivers. You looking receiver here?
I am going receiver, and I think I was going to take Cole Beasley. I'm going to take Cole Beasley.
Well, there's several, you have Cole Beasley and Randall Cobb, both like number 2 options within a high passing offense. I think they make sense.
I wanted to take T.Y. Hilton. I like the idea of him being still kind of like the number 1 in that offense, or like a 2-ish, but the quarterback situation is still a little murky. I know the reports are that Wentz is trending to play week 1, but it's just too much uncertainty for me right now. So, yeah, Cole Beasley is the slot guy, but he's really the number 2, all-pro last year, so I'll go with that.
So there's actually a lot of receivers that I like here, but again, I've already got 6 of them. I could take another one. I'd like Sammy Watkins. I think there's a chance he's the number 1 receiver in Baltimore. But I have to go with another running back here, and one of my favorite receiving back ones is a guy that used to create them at will in New England and is now down in Tampa Bay, and they added Gio Bernard, and I love that option there. I think that he might have himself like a 60 catch season. So I have a lot of Gio Bernard late. I think he's a sneaky.
I always thought he could have gotten
he
more
could be
number 1
James
RB
White
opportunities. Oh, good call. Yeah, he's a really talented guy.
So I need some wideouts. So Tyler Williams, I think, not that I love Jared Goff or the Detroit offense at all, but at this point, probably a number 1 type of a receiver.
I think he's the sneakiest number 1 receiver.
So
watching the Bills Detroit game, he was on the field every single play and the most targets.
So I'm going to grab him, and then Anthony, just a little veteran action with Ty. I don't mind Ty. Again, I don't love Wentz, but the prognosis on the foot came back better than expected, which is encouraging. So for my 6th wide receiver, I don't mind adding the veteran Ty. From that perspective, he fell a little bit ADP-wise, so I got a little bit of a value on him. So I like my mix there. The only thing I don't like about my wide receiving core right now is, again, my top 3 all have the same bye week, so that's not stellar. But I don't really look at that from a talent perspective in those rounds a lot of times, especially in best ball.
From a best ball standpoint, if you look at my last 4 receivers, obviously I like the top 3, A.J. Brown, Brandon Ayuk, Deontay Johnson. I think from a target standpoint, I love the best ball upside of Cortland Sutton, Mike Williams, Darnell Mooney, Sammy Watkins, that, I just need one of them to have the 3-catch, 105-yard touchdown game with the big deep bomb. And I do like to sprinkle in a couple more of those that could be kind of frustrating in week-to-week leagues where you have to set your lineup.
You hit right on the head of what I'm looking for. Best ball I like him in general. I think he plays on a very explosive, interesting offense, but the best ball aspect, because he does have some blow up weeks because of his speed and deep threat ability. I'm going to take Christian Kirk. He had a really cool one-handed catch for Arizona this past week too.
And I like cool highlights.
And I'm all about one-handed catches. But no, yeah, like the best ball aspect, Kirk had a decent amount of games last year where it was like 4 catches for 121 yards and 2 touchdowns, or 3 catches for 98 yards and a touchdown. So that's a cool flyer to take. And I also think that offense from a receiver standpoint is interesting. Like AJ Green gets brought in, and you would think he's like the 2, but this now allows Kirk to kick into the slot where he's much better and can get downfield, but they also brought in Rondale Moore, so I'm interested to see what that target share and distribution looks like after DeAndre Hopkins, considering who they brought in and even what their backfield looks like, which seems more passing-oriented as a whole.
So, Rich, as you get later into drafts here, obviously, like you said, with your Malcolm Brown pick, how are you approaching, and whether it's best ball ones like this one, or in home leagues, or in season long leagues, do you have set, kind of upside versus safety? Are there different positions that you go for? What are some of the things that you try to target late rounds in drafts?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, Anthony touched on it earlier. I think, you have to be flexible with your strategy. So it all depends on how the draft is going in your roster makeup. But yeah, traditionally, later in drafts, especially if it's a keeper draft, I'm looking for, the younger players with the higher upside. I think, and even in best ball, I'm looking now for guys that, maybe can spring into a starting spot like Malcolm Brown. There's three guys I really like at the running back position that I think are in those types of positions. There's a couple wideouts that I really like that hopefully will fall to me, that I think can, maybe get an opportunity if a player goes down. So I think at this point you're looking for, hey, you're rooting for that, not rooting for an injury, but you're kind of rooting for that top player to go down, and then you end up having the guy that gets those carries or gets those targets. And a couple of them just went. So Ramondre Stevenson was one of them. Ramondre. So he had a really nice week. I'm not a Damian Harris guy. I'm not much of a Patriots guy this year, but I see his skill set just to me is crazy. So
Patriots, I am only interested in running backs, and they are Damian Harris and Ramondre Stevenson. I don't want any other Patriot on my roster, but I think they're going to try to run the ball a lot.
Yes, and he was one of the guys that's in my queue right now. I was really hoping he was going to fall to me. But I still got two other guys from that standpoint. So, yeah, it kind of depends. So at this point, I'm probably not going to go veteran unless for whatever reason I somehow have just a really young roster, kind of like the T.Y. Hilton pick. The guy, I just want to maybe plug a guy in that's going to get X amount of targets and not be forgotten in the offense. But usually, I'm kind of trying to swing for the fences now, especially in a best ball league.
Speaking of best ball and upside, Deshaun Jackson's one of my favorite late run ones, having Matthew Stafford. I don't know how many games we're going to get, but we know we're going to get a handful, at least two of those 70-yard touchdowns from him in LA before he gets hurt again.
I was literally looking at him thinking that could be fun, and then he went.
Yeah.
I need to stop thinking about who I like because they seem to go.
I don't know that I'm going to pick Deshaun Jackson in any season-long league, but I have him in a lot of the best ball leagues where it's just like, hey, I just need the one fun week where he scores a bunch.
And speaking of players, so Damani Brown for Washington and KJ Hamler were both in my queue, as well as guys that Drew Lock looked at Hamler quite a bit this last week. I know they have Jerry Jeudy. I know they have Cortland Sutton there, but Hamler was a hot pick as well, so I like the skill set he brings there. And then Brown as well, I just think something different. Curtis Samuel's banged up a little bit in Washington. So that was another guy I was really hoping. Those two are both guys I was hoping they were going to fall to me at the turn here.
I went with Darius Slayton. I like his skill set, and he's got a good rapport with Daniel Jones. And I think Kenny Galladay is good when healthy, but he seems to not be able to stay healthy. So you got a guy in Slayton who could see, number 2 target share at worst. I think maybe number 3. Tony's not fitting in great with that offense, but a guy who I think could pull in some touchies and get some targets.
Can we talk again what a touchy is?
A touchy is... I was going to try and make a joke.
Himself.
It's slang for touchdown.
So one of the ones, and again, it's very late. We're talking about end of the 16th round. Tevin Coleman's listed as the number 1 running back on the Jets depth chart, and they brought over the other LaFleur to come over and run that San Francisco Shanahan
Pete
offense.
LaFleur from Dodgeball, leader of Average Joes.
It actually is not. So I don't think there's a huge probability that he's the top guy, but there's a non-zero chance that he gets some nice weeks as the number 1 back, maybe before Michael Carter takes over.
The Carter.
Boston Scott. A lot of buzz about him coming out of Philadelphia.
Take Boston Scott. When you mentioned your running back things, I was like, he's going to take Boston Scott.
Yeah, so like again, Miles Sanders, I'm not a huge I don't know. I'm not a huge believer in him. So I think that's a situation, and a lot of people are thinking, it might be almost a 60-40 timeshare anyways. So I'll take Boston Scott at this point, and then maybe get a Miles Sanders injury, and then I look into a starting running back here in the 16th round, and then I can't say his name, but the gentleman from Atlanta who we've talked about on prior shows as well.
Alameda Zaccheaus.
Yes, Zaccheaus. Russell Gage, Zacchaeus, somebody's going to have to get some targets out there, even though, Kyle Pitts will probably be the number 2 guy there, but somebody's going to get some targets there. So take a shot that maybe he's the guy that gets an increased share of targets in Atlanta.
In the 17th round, I drafted Carson Wentz on purpose.
Yeah, all right.
Oh,
it's a 17th round, and I figure I don't need a quarterback until week 10, and by week 10, I think he's going to be playing.
Well, speaking of that same situation, and I could be giving this away here to Anthony, but similar to like Deshaun Watson, I think about here too. Like, he's going to get suspended probably, but for how long? I don't know.
Yeah. Do you get a half season of Deshaun Watson level play?
Do you get him at the end as a third quarterback? I mean, I don't like him as a person after all those allegations, but that's neither here nor there as far as this goes. So.
Yeah, correct. That's it's not a factor within the fantasy scoring. So adding Josh Allen, Ryan Fitzpatrick, Sam Darnold, some friends. I think those 3 have golfed together.
Yeah, that's what I was looking for. I like guys who golf well, hit from the white.
You totally missed out on a threesome reference after handcuffing yourself and touchies. I mean, you should have just kept going with it there.
No, I didn't want to go through it. I had my eye on one other guy, but I think he's going to be there. And I think Sam Darnold could do some good things. And just in case, I don't know, something goes sideways with Ryan Fitzpatrick or Josh Allen, I wanted to have one more insurance aspect for the best ball.
I like it. All right, we're coming down to the final pick of the draft. We have gone through 17 rounds. After we wrap here, we'll kind of talk through each of our teams and have each person kind of talk through. So is our last chance to kind of set straight, the number of positions we have, where we're at. I'm looking it over. I waited on quarterback and tight end, so I think I'm actually going to end up taking 3 of each. I'm going to target 1 more tight end. I've got my 3 quarterbacks, feel decent about my running backs. I love my receiver room, and I like my top 2 tight ends, but I want 1 more just to be able to fill in a week. So that's what I'm targeting here. Anthony, as you go through, what's the last position that you're looking for?
I'm going to be going running back, I believe. I'm sitting here looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I've got 7 receivers. I've got 2 tight ends. I don't like any of the tight ends that are left really to kind of threaten anything, although I guess I potentially could, look at someone who has like touchdown upside, like maybe a Dawson Knox. Sure. Or someone like that. I think I'm either. Oh, there goes Dawson. Why do I speak? That's wild. Every time Dawson Knox just went. So I think I'm going to be looking at running back here, given the way the board has fallen here.
Rich, what is your final strategy of what you're looking for?
Yeah, I feel pretty comfortable with Stafford and Baker. I might look for 1 more quarterback just in case, because it's always kind of scary if you only have 2 in a best ball. It's similar to tight end. I feel good with Kittle and Gesicki though. So like, I like to usually have 3 of one of those 2 positions. I have 7 wide receivers and 6 running backs. So I mean, I'm pretty set there. I got 4 people in the queue, although 1 is a running back and 1 is a wide receiver. But we'll see what happens, because I am the last pick of the draft. So
yes,
there you are.
Closing it out.
Oh, actually, I think I might go.
I'm somewhat intrigued that there's a couple of the late tight ends. Dan Arnold in Carolina.
I was literally about to say, I didn't want to jinx it. I said, I think I'm going to take Dan Arnold.
There you go.
You know why? Because if you just do his first initial and his last name, it spells out Darnold, and that can't be a coincidence with who his quarterback is. So I'm going to take Dan Arnold.
Speaking to you.
I'm taking Dan Arnold.
I don't hate Mo Alley Cox in Indy. And the sneaky one for me, so Rich likes to take David Njoku late. My sneaky one is CJ Uzomah. I actually think that if we get the stronger season from Joe Burrow, I've heard mixed signals on him from a camp standpoint, but I actually think there's a chance that CJ Uzomah is a sneaky pick. So I'm going to take him as my 3rd tight end.
Sneaky.
Rich, the final pick of the draft.
Last pick of the draft. So for me, it's between Drew Lock, who I already talked about. I wouldn't mind adding him. I think he looked pretty he looked pretty sharp. Darrell Williams is a guy in Kansas City I kind of like too. And then, Njoku, who I talked about. So considering I feel quarterback's a little more important position, I'm just going to add a third one, and I'm going to take Drew Lock just to have a third option there at quarterback. And that is it. That's the draft.
Oh, it takes us to our projections.
There we go. Look at that. So
I love the exposures.
Mine is up on the team or up on the screen, so we'll go through mine first. So I don't have any teams with 4 or 3. I do have two Chicago Bears and 2 Indianapolis Colts. Otherwise, I'm pretty spread around. I do have 4 guys on bye in Week 10, including 2 quarterbacks. So that's a little sketchy, but otherwise did pretty good in spreading around. I'm pretty conscious of it as I go, not to double dip, and I will warn people, Week 7 is going to be a bear. Week 7 is by far the worst bye week from fantasy standpoints, and there's a ton of them, and a ton of the big offenses are there together in Week 7. So, obviously I waited at quarterback, so I'm going for just upside and hoping for big weeks to be able to get Justin Fields starting relatively soon, hoping Carson Wentz isn't out long, and that Daniel Jones has some playable weeks, but obviously banking a lot on some upside of lower-end quarterbacks. Feel pretty decent with my running backs, Dalvin Cook, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and then some of the receiving backs, or maybe a flyer that Coleman gets a shot at the top spot for a couple weeks in New York. Then at receiver, obviously feel really good. I went heavy and early on receivers: A.J. Brown, Brandon Ayuk, Deontay Johnson, Cortland Sutton, Mike Williams, Darnell Mooney, Sammy Watkins. I'm banking on having 4 receivers starting for me every week, 2 starting, 2 flex, like the whole time in there rotating through. And then I think between the offenses I went after, I got the tight ends in LA, Green Bay, and Cincinnati. So Higbee, Tanyan, and Uzoma. I'm just banking on one of these guys scoring a touchdown each week and getting me a startable tight end play. So I feel reasonably good about it. I don't know. I can switch. Rich, walk us through your team.
Yeah, so I just looking through this roster, it's honestly not one of my favorite underdog drafts I've done. This is the first one I've taken a tight end this high. So I took Kittle in the 3rd round because I wanted to kind of see what that's like. And for whatever reason, when I do these underdog drafts, I get the first pick. It's very strange. So I have a lot of the CMC love. But, quarterback, Stafford, Mayfield, and Locke. Again, obviously I waited as well from a quarterback standpoint, taking Stafford 96. But I think Stafford's going to have a really nice year with the Rams, so I'm really pumped about that. Baker, I kind of took a homer pick there as a Browns fan. I just wanted to have some fun with that one over, say, Burrow, who I do really like, or Justin Fields also looked very good as well, at least in Week 1 of preseason. But I went with my boy Baker. Running back, obviously CMC, but the Jacobs Drake thing I kind of like from a pairing standpoint, which I talked about when I made those picks. I like Malcolm Brown a lot late. I like Phillip Lindsay a lot late, in Boston Scott. So I like all of those guys as people that could step up and get big time, carry shares if an injury happens. I think Malcolm Brown's going to matter no matter what. I think Phillip Lindsay also to some extent will matter no matter what. Same with Boston Scott, but I don't. I'm not a huge fan of my second running back situation there, so I'm not in love with that. And the wide receiver room, I like it. CeeDee Lamb, Thielen, DJ Shark, Tyler Boyd, but the bye week in Week 7 totally kills me a little bit there with the top 3.
Yeah, needing 2 or 3 of these guys all starting that week could be a
so that week's gonna be a challenge. But I like Tyrell Williams late. But again, nothing. Looking at the draft again, I don't think I would go tight end high. Just looking at how things fell. Now again, that's from the first pick. But with Kittle there, obviously I like it, but without the tight end premium, I probably wouldn't do that again, which is why you do these drafts, which is great. Which is why you do these best ball drafts and kind of play around with things, go, okay, I don't usually do that. Let me do that and see what actually happens. And for me, I don't love Kittle there. I much rather would have had a great wide receiver and then plug together the tight end position like I usually do, and Greg, kind of like you did.
So our top projected scorer in the league is Anthony.
Oh, it's me? Oh, that's cool.
You have the top projected score. So walk us through your roster and how you feel.
Well, I mean, the projected score speaks for itself. Do I even need to go into it? No, as I mentioned going through, I guess I'll start with the QBs. I deviated from not too much from my normal strategy. If the value is there, I think legitimately, like not even an exaggeration, I think the highest I've gone really in fantasy is taking a quarterback in like the 6th round, other than like 1 or 2 years where I took Aaron Rodgers in the 1st or 2nd based on a keeper league, but I already had people on the roster, so it's a little different. So I bucked the trend a little bit for myself, taking Josh Allen there, but I thought the value was good. I like the idea of having that, that 3 QB room based on best ball, and in case some injuries or some things happen. I also like the bye week matchups for Josh Allen. Fitzy plays the Packers and Darnold plays the Giants. So I like those 2 options. And then going into running back and wide receiver, part of the reason
You've got 2 backfields.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't even realize that. And AJ Dillon as well to sprinkle in there. Part of the reason I felt comfortable going with Allen was because the way I started with my 2 running backs and my 2 receivers, I felt comfortable coming away from the first 4 rounds with Zeke and Dobbins and DK Metcalf and DJ Moore. And then, the running back room, we kind of talked through it as I did it. The idea of 1, the handcuffs, 2, touchdown upside, and the best ball aspect of one of those guys could have a blow up touchdown week. So that could factor in. I like my wide receiver room a lot. DK and DJ Moore, I think, are both really strong receivers. I like the touch upside of Debo and the touchdown upside as well. I hate myself for taking Jarvis Landry, but I recognize he's a good football player.
Landry and Beasley are both also really good, just like week-to-week buoys that, like, you're not going to bottom out for everybody. Yes. They're going to give you, like, hey, I didn't get a score out of any of my top end, kind of flashy guys, but they're going to get you 6 for 68. And all of a sudden you have, your 10 points and get what you need to be able to get through to the next week.
Exactly. Those non-sexy floor guys who, if they get some touchdowns, it could really end up being a successful week for them. But I like how that shaped out. I really like the boom potential of Christian Kirk, and I think he could be a sneaky guy to be a solid fantasy contributor for that Cardinals offense. But the best ball attraction was really big for me with him, just knowing he has that. Like the example you gave, like the 3 catches for 105 yards and a touchdown, like that could be, a week winner on one week because of the best ball aspect. And then tight end, the clock was winding down and things went a little sideways, but I'm still happy when I took Dallas Goedert. The way the board fell, I wasn't in love with anything else to kind of push me away from tight end, although I did take a tight end earlier in this draft than I typically tend to normally. But I like Goddard. I think he's going to have a good year in Philly. I think I've had him on at least one fantasy team every single year that he's been in the NFL, so I'm very well versed with him. And even though it's a different offense, they're functioning with that 2 tight end set, and he's really good. And then I like the upside of Ferkser and Dan Arnold as well with that last pick. I think he could, find a home there and a role there in Carolina. And I mainly took it just because I know Goddard's had some injury issues, and I didn't want to bank on just like one other tight end in the grouping after Goddard. So that's why I went with Darnold there.
I like it. So obviously, tonight we want to share with everybody what it's like to be able to draft on Underdog. Hopefully you saw how easy and simple it is. You can go and download the Cover One or download the Underdog app. Use promo code Cover1. You get $25 free if you deposit 10. So anything $10 or above, you get 25 for free. We'd love to be able to play along with you guys. We're gonna have a lot more fun with that as we go. We'll definitely do more live drafts here on the show, and then as we get into the season, you can do 1 week drafts like a DFS style where you just pick players for that week based on a specific matchup or whoever you're looking for, and are able to play and have a lot more fun in that kind of setup as well. So before we get out of here, Rich, Anthony, any other takeaways from this weekend, guys, that you saw that were intriguing, or things that you're going to be watching in upcoming weeks that we haven't seen yet because the guy was out, or you're interested where it goes? And I know in watching the San Francisco game, obviously it was kind of fun to be able to see Trey Lance. I thought that was intriguing. I'm curious to see. I want to watch their backfield and see the split with Mostert, or are they going to try to give more of a shot early on to Trey Sermon, because Mostert's a guy that I haven't minded later on in drafts. Anything, Rich, that you saw this week and we didn't have a chance to touch on?
Well, actually, I thought from a Buffalo standpoint, I thought Devin Singletary looked pretty good.
Nice.
I was watching that game.
Quick, explosive.
That was the night game, right? I was watching that game at the bar, I believe. So I thought he was, looked a little more explosive than in the past. Ramondre Stevenson, who we already talked about, 10 for 127 and 2 touchdowns, was really eye-opening for me. I don't care what time of the game that was. When you're getting those types of stats, I think it's interesting, especially with his size at the running back position. And again, I don't think Damian Harris has that locked down by any means in New England. outside of that, from a Brown standpoint, Donovan Peoples-Jones, and he was in my queue for a minute there. He's gonna be the heir apparent to OBJ. One OBJ's gone next year from a salary cap perspective. He is making a ton of plays. Obviously he's not going to have a ton of fantasy impact this year because of that situation, but if there's an injury there, keep an eye out from a waiver wire standpoint. But really, next week matters more, right? This week was just fun to get football back and start to, see some things. You get to see some of the backup quarterbacks, or Drew Lock, players like that are Tua, who we weren't really sure, if they're going to solidify their starting positions, and they both looked good, which was nice. So, but next week is where you can really start to get into the analysis, in my opinion, of some of those battles, or seeing some starters play, some extended time.
I like it. Anthony, what are you watching for in these upcoming preseason games?
A lot of the position groupings on teams that have potential but are maybe still a little questionable. Similar to Rich's take there on Drew Lock, like the Denver weaponry piece. Sutton, Judy, Hamler had a big touchdown on a gorgeous throw from Lock. How does that offense settle in? What do they start to look like? Keeping an eye on the Philly offense. What does, Jalen Hurts, actually, all jokes aside, looked really good from an accuracy and ball perspective in week one. How does that continue? Also from a weapons perspective, I think it's Quez Watkins, the one who had that touchdown, and he also had a deep shot from Hurts that just went out of his fingertips. Eagles fans are loving him in every regard, talking about his speed and his big play potential. And, Devonta Smith should be coming back, so that offense could be explosive as well. And then also like offenses like New England, where, we made the comments that if you're all we want is like Ramondre or Damian Harris and that's it. How does that offense start to settle in with Cam Newton, or even looking with Mac Jones? What does Aguilar look like in Kendrick Bourne? The tight ends have been a little banged up, but now Henry is coming back, and what does that look like for their team? I think it starts to settle that fantasy landscape a little bit. And then you touched on Tua. I'm also looking at Tua, but that Miami Dolphins offense as a whole, with Fuller and Parker and Gesicki and Jalen Waddle and the running backs, like there is some talent to be had. And with how good of the performance you think their defense will put up, the Dolphins offense should be able to score or be put in favorable positions. So who starts to track and trend for that offense in fantasy and start to be able to look like they could be fantasy relevant and consistent?
Awesome. Yeah, I think the wide receiver core there, Anthony, that's a great point in Miami. I'm really interested to see between Fuller and Parker and Waddle and Gesicki, what's going to happen there. And I was encouraged by Tua's pocket presence and his ball placement, again, outside of that interception, because I think you're going to get a couple fantasy relevant people there, because I don't think they're going to have a great running game, even if whether it's Malcolm Brown or Myles Gaskin. So I think you're going to get some fantasy relevancy from two of those guys. So I'm not exactly sure which two. I think Gesicki's going to get some looks for sure at the tight end position, and then one of those wide receivers I think is definitely going to be kind of a sneaky guy where you're like, oh man, Devontae Parker's 18th overall from a wideout standpoint. Weird, or Will Fuller or whatever.
Good call, yeah, for sure.
Awesome. All right, guys. Well, thank you guys for following along with us. We will do more of these as we go. As Rich said, next week we'll get into sleepers and talk about some of our favorite late round guys. The following week we'll probably do another draft, maybe bring on a guest to be able to play around and do one of those with us. But appreciate it. Make sure you're following Rich at Burn River Sports on Twitter. Follow Anthony at pro__ANT. You can find me at Greg Tompsett. Also having fun in the Cover One Slack channel, or always going around there. So appreciate everybody. On behalf of the guys, you've been listening to Cover One Fantasy.